There is a map buried deep beneath the surface of what most men and even women themselves believe about the mind, a map that whispers truths only the daring are willing to confront. Sigmund Freud sketched it nearly a century ago, not in ink, but in the trembling pulse of the human psyche. He did not hand it to the world in plain sight, because the truth of desire, of instinct, of the unseen architecture of emotion is never meant to be simple. To understand it is to step into a hall of mirrors, where every reflection is another layer of consciousness, a secret waiting to be acknowledged. Most people fear the unseen, fear what they cannot name, and so they walk blind through their own lives, reacting instead of knowing, obeying the tide of projection and misperception. But there is a different way. A man who grasps this map does not manipulate. He perceives. He does not seek to conquer. He seeks to understand. And in understanding, the labyrinth becomes navigable. At the core of this hidden map is a principle as old as civilization itself. Beneath the surface of every expression, every word, every glance, lies an undercurrent. Freud called it the unconscious, the reservoir of instinct, memory, and desire that shapes the conscious self without ever asking permission. To ignore it is to stumble blindly. To see it is to gain the power of clarity, the sort of clarity that cuts through confusion like a scalpel. And so we begin not with what is visible, but with what is hidden, the tension between the mask and the face, between what is said and what is felt. Every woman navigates her world with these layers, not as barriers, but as survival mechanisms. Every glance of affection, every word of resistance, every silence pregnant with meaning is a coordinate on this map. Few men notice them, fewer still understand them. But you, the seeker, will learn to read them, to see the invisible threads that tie perception to reality. This is not manipulation, this is comprehension. To step into this space is to recognize the alchemy of mind and emotion, the dialogue between conscious intention and the vast undercurrent of instinct. Here you do not guess, you observe. Here you do not react, you reflect. And reflection is the birthplace of wisdom. Consider the notion of desire. Freud spoke of eros not as simple lust, but as the driving force behind creation, connection, and conflict. It is a river that flows beneath the rational mind, shaping choices, testing limits, and revealing priorities. Desire does not speak in plain language. It speaks in contradictions, in pauses, in what is unsaid. To ignore this is to wander in darkness. To understand it is to wield a compass that guides through the fog of uncertainty. A compass most men never even know exists. And then there is defense, the mechanisms by which the mind shields itself from chaos, shame, and discomfort. Projection, repression, sublimation. These are not flaws, they are survival. They are the structures built to navigate a world that often misunderstands, underestimates, or outright harms. To see these defenses is not to exploit them. It is to honor them, to understand the way a river honors the stones that shape its path. Only then can you engage without disrupting, connect without coercion, and witness without judgment. The hidden map is layered. There is the conscious persona, shaped by culture, expectation, and the relentless weight of social narrative. There is the private self, known only to intimate allies, lovers, and the self alone. And there is the shadow, a term Jung borrowed from Freud, where the parts of the psyche that are denied, feared, or misunderstood gather in secret, shaping behavior in ways that are invisible until observed. To navigate this map is to move between these layers with quiet precision, to see the persona, respect the private self, and recognize the shadow not as a threat, but as a signal. Every detail matters. A hesitation in speech, a subtle shift in posture, a choice of word or glance, all are coordinates on this hidden terrain. Most men are blind to them. They see only the surface, reacting with expectation, projection, or desire for control. But you, the one willing to perceive, will see the currents beneath. You will understand that resistance is not rejection, distance is not disinterest, silence is not absence. These are the languages of the hidden map, spoken fluently by the mind that understands itself and its desires. To read this map, you must first master yourself. Freud, and later Jung, warned that no understanding of another mind is possible without insight into your own. Shadow work, self-reflection, and ruthless honesty with your own motives and fears are the keys. Without this, the map is meaningless, a labyrinth with no exit. But with this, the labyrinth becomes a mirror, and every reflection is a lesson in connection, empathy, and clarity. Consider the historical context. Machiavelli observed the power structures of men and women centuries ago, not for seduction, but for survival. Nietzsche dissected the will, the drive, the unspoken hunger that animates every human choice. Huxley warned of societies blinded by distraction, submission, and manufactured consent. These thinkers did not offer instructions for manipulation. They offered the framework for understanding the mechanics of mind, the patterns of desire, and the architecture of influence. The hidden map is no different. And here is the paradox. The deeper you understand, the less you control. Real power is never coercive. Real power is perception, patience, and presence. It is the ability to see the currents of mind and act not from impulse, but from alignment with reality. It is the courage to witness without reaction, to observe without judgment, to connect without desperation. And in this space, the invisible becomes visible, the unspoken becomes understood, and the mind that once confounded you becomes a landscape of opportunity for clarity, empathy, and authentic engagement. The female mind, like any human mind, thrives on recognition, not demand, on understanding, not correction, on resonance, not imposition. To traverse the hidden map is to cultivate a presence so attuned, so grounded, that no provocation can unsettle you, no misinterpretation can confuse you, no silence can alienate you. You become the observer of chaos, the witness to desire, the navigator of shadow. And in this mastery, anger, frustration, and confusion lose their grip. Every step you take into this map requires courage. You must face your own impulses, your own ego, your own fears of inadequacy. Freud insisted that the mind is a battlefield where instinct, culture, and morality clash. To see another's mind, you must first have survived your own. You must have descended into your personal unconscious and emerged intact, aware, and sovereign. Only then can you interpret the signals of another psyche without distortion, without projection, without need. And so the hidden map is not a trick nor a cheat. It is a mirror. It is the reflection of your own clarity projected outward. It is the understanding that every glance, every gesture, every word carries layers of meaning, and that mastery is not about control. It is about perception, patience, and presence. You do not bend the mind to your will. You see it as it is, and in seeing it, you align yourself with the flow of reality, the truth of desire, and the rhythm of connection that most people live their lives blind to. Here is the ultimate secret. The mind resists intrusion, but thrives on recognition. To navigate the hidden map, you need only three things: attention, empathy, and detachment. Attention to observe the patterns, empathy to understand the motivations, and detachment to remain unshaken by provocation, misunderstanding, or projection. In this triad, you become immune to frustration. You become a presence that clarifies rather than a force that imposes. And when you master this, you unlock a freedom most men never taste: the freedom to engage without anger, to connect without confusion, and to witness without interference. You see the layers, the currents, the shadows, and you respond not from fear, desire, or ego, but from understanding. In that response, you find power. In that clarity, you find peace. And in that peace, the hidden map unfolds before you, not as a maze to conquer, but as a landscape to navigate with insight, courage, and authenticity. To move further into this hidden terrain, you must understand one fundamental truth. The mind is not linear. It is a web, a constellation of impulses, memories, and instincts that stretch across time, past experience, and untamed desire. Freud called it the unconscious, Jung called it the shadow, and every culture, every philosopher, every poet has recognized it in their own way. The self you see is only the tip of the iceberg. What lies beneath is alive, turbulent, and infinitely complex. It moves with subtlety, with nuance, with intention that is not always conscious, but is always consequential. Consider the patterns of attraction, the gestures that speak louder than words. Most men mistake expression for intention, motion for desire, and surface for substance. But the hidden map teaches you to pause, to notice, to witness. A glance that lingers is not always longing, but it is always a signal. A word spoken softly may carry more weight than a declaration shouted. A pause, a hesitation, a subtle withdrawal, these are coordinates in the mind's geography. And like any cartographer, you must chart them without fear, without assumption, without impulse. Let us examine projection, the mechanism that shrouds reality in illusion. Freud observed that what is denied internally is often seen externally. People see in others what they cannot reconcile within themselves. Women, like men, project their fears, desires, and frustrations outward, and these projections are powerful, magnetic, and misleading. The untrained observer will be consumed, reacting to the projection as if it were reality. The master of the hidden map, however, sees the projection, recognizes its origin, and remains untethered. Anger, frustration, confusion, they are no longer chains, but signals, guides pointing to truths hidden beneath the surface. And then there is repression, the shadow's silent architect. Memory, instinct, and desire are often locked away, not destroyed, but contained, shaped into forms that emerge only under pressure. These repressed elements influence behavior subtly, like the current beneath a calm sea. A word, a touch, a glance can stir them, and those unprepared will respond with shock or dismay. The one who understands the hidden map sees the ripple before the wave, the shadow before the manifestation, the motive before the action. And in seeing it, the power to remain calm, grounded, and unaffected becomes not a practice, but a state of being. Desire, defense, projection, repression, they are not tools to manipulate, but signals to observe. The mastery of this hidden map is mastery of perception, and perception is the first step toward emotional sovereignty. Nietzsche once wrote that he who has a why can endure any how. The hidden map provides the why. It explains the currents, the motivations, the invisible architecture that drives every thought, every word, every gesture. To understand the why is to step outside the chaos of reaction and into the calm of clarity. Here you encounter the ultimate paradox. The deeper you understand, the less you need to act. Most men believe power lies in control, in imposition, in reaction. But true power, the power the hidden map confers, lies in observation, patience, and alignment. You do not force the mind to bend. You perceive its shape and navigate accordingly. The mind resists intrusion, but thrives on recognition. And when you recognize it fully, without distortion, without desire, without ego, the response that emerges is effortless, organic, and precise. This requires discipline, the kind Nietzsche admired in warriors and philosophers alike. Discipline to remain present when provocation tempts you into reaction. Discipline to observe when misunderstanding tries to spark confusion. Discipline to reflect when impulse demands interference. It is not easy, it is not casual. It is a practice that demands honesty, courage, and relentless self-awareness. But it is the only path to emotional sovereignty, the only route to being unshakable in the presence of the unknown. Every interaction becomes a field of study, every conversation a map to explore, every silence a revelation. The one who navigates this map is not reactive but responsive, not angry but attuned, not disturbed but anchored. You begin to see the subtle language of desire, the rhythms of avoidance, the patterns of defense, and the shadow lines of projection. And with each observation, your clarity grows, your calm deepens, and the chaos that once rattled you becomes a landscape you traverse with precision, empathy, and insight. Now consider sublimation, the mind's alchemy. What is forbidden, what is repressed, what is shadowed, can be transformed into creation, expression, and insight. This is the power of the hidden map. It does not seek to remove the shadow. It teaches you to translate it, to understand it, and to navigate its currents without being pulled under. This is why genius, creativity, and emotional mastery often arise from struggle. The unseen forces of the psyche, when observed and respected, can be harnessed into insight, influence, and equilibrium. Historical figures understood this even when they lacked Freud's terminology. Machiavelli mapped the currents of human behavior to understand strategy, not seduction. Nietzsche dissected the will and the instinct to uncover power, not control. Huxley warned of societies manipulated by distraction, fear, and obedience, urging perception, awareness, and insight as shields against chaos. You stand in this lineage, using the hidden map to navigate not a battlefield of armies, but a battlefield of mind and emotion. And here is the most profound truth. To read the mind without anger is to step into freedom. Anger arises from confusion, from misperception, from projection. The hidden map dissolves all three. It allows you to see intention without judgment, to observe impulse without reaction, and to witness desire without distortion. You are no longer trapped in the cycle of provocation and retaliation. You are anchored in the current of perception, flowing with clarity rather than resisting in chaos. Every glance, every gesture, every silence now speaks clearly. The hesitation, the withdrawal, the subtle signals, they are coordinates, not challenges. They guide you, teach you, and reveal what lies beneath the surface. And in this mastery, nothing can disturb you, nothing can provoke you, and nothing can control you. You become the calm eye in the storm, the observer in the theater of instinct, the navigator of the unconscious. To master this map, you must cultivate three qualities relentlessly: attention, empathy, and detachment. Attention allows you to perceive the signals hidden beneath the surface. Empathy allows you to understand their meaning without imposing your own interpretation. Detachment allows you to remain unshaken, unaffected, and sovereign in the face of projection, defense, and desire. These qualities together form the core of emotional invincibility, and once you possess them, you step into a new reality. The hidden map unfolds like a living atlas. You see the subtle currents before they become waves. You understand resistance before it manifests as rejection. You recognize desire before it hides behind defense. And in this understanding, you move not with force, but with alignment, not with anger, but with perception, not with frustration, but with clarity. The ultimate mastery is not in controlling another mind. It is in mastering your own response to it. Anger, frustration, and confusion dissolve when you perceive fully. Projection, defense, and shadow no longer bind you. Desire, instinct, and impulse no longer surprise you. You become the calm observer, the quiet navigator, the sovereign presence that no provocation can unsettle, no misperception can disturb, and no complexity can confuse. This is the hidden map. This is the secret Freud sketched, Jung expanded, and history ignored. It is not a weapon, nor a manipulation, nor a trick. It is perception sharpened to a blade. It is understanding refined to art. It is emotional sovereignty forged in the crucible of self-awareness and insight. And when you step fully into it, when you read, perceive, and navigate the currents of mind with attention, empathy, and detachment, you will find a freedom that most men never even imagine, the freedom to engage without anger, to observe without confusion, and to act with clarity, power, and calm. And now you step further into the hidden architecture of the mind, where understanding becomes art and awareness becomes power. It is here that the ordinary man falters, lost in impulse, projection, and frustration. But you, the seeker, are learning to perceive the invisible threads that guide thought, desire, and behavior. Every hesitation, every pause, every subtle inflection is a signpost. Every withdrawal, every glance, every unsaid word is a coordinate. And like a cartographer of consciousness, you learn to chart the map without force, without judgment, without anger. The mastery of this terrain begins with listening, not hearing, not waiting to respond, but listening. Listening to the rhythm beneath the words, the cadence beneath the actions, the patterns beneath the surface. Most men mistake words for truth, gestures for intention, and noise for meaning. But the hidden map teaches you that the truth is subtle, elusive, and often paradoxical. Desire is rarely direct, resistance is rarely simple, and defense is never transparent. To engage without anger, you must first learn to decode these patterns. Consider for a moment the principle of reflection. Every mind carries a shadow, a set of denied impulses, fears, and unacknowledged desires. The shadow speaks in metaphor, in contradiction, in subtle cues. A mind untrained in observation reacts. A mind trained in the hidden map sees. It does not judge, it does not impose, it observes. And in observation, power is born, not the power to manipulate, but the power to remain anchored in the storm of impulse, the eye of the hurricane where chaos rages all around, yet you remain unmoved. Projection, the mind's trickster, is perhaps the most misunderstood signal. Freud warned that people see in others what they refuse to see in themselves. A glance of suspicion may reveal not distrust of you, but a fear she carries within herself. A word of criticism may reveal not attack, but insecurity she cannot reconcile internally. And when you perceive this, when you see the projection for what it is, anger loses its grip, frustration dissolves, confusion vanishes. You respond not with reactivity, but with comprehension. And comprehension is a power that cannot be taken, borrowed, or misinterpreted. Defense mechanisms, repression, rationalization, sublimation are not barriers to understanding, but signposts pointing toward deeper truths. Every withdrawal is a warning, every resistance a signal, every hesitation a guide. The ordinary man sees a wall, the navigator of the hidden map sees a door, a window, a path forward. The secret is to observe without interference, to perceive without intrusion, and to respond with clarity rather than reaction. Sublimation, the mind's alchemy, transforms shadow into insight, desire into creation, impulse into understanding. When you see desire and instinct clearly, not as something to control, but as signals to decode, you begin to act with precision. Anger, provocation, and misunderstanding cannot touch you because your mind is aligned with perception. Your actions are guided by clarity, and your presence radiates calm authority. You move through the currents of human interaction like a river flowing around stones, unshaken, persistent, inevitable. History offers countless examples of this principle in action. Machiavelli, observing the dance of power, understood that influence arises from perception, not brute force. Nietzsche, dissecting the will, recognized that mastery begins within before it manifests outward. Huxley, warning against distraction and manipulation, taught that awareness is the only true defense against chaos. You now stand in the lineage of thinkers, strategists and philosophers who recognize that the mind is a battlefield, but the greatest victories are won through perception, not domination. And here lies the ultimate paradox. The deeper you understand the hidden map, the less you feel compelled to act. Most men are driven by impulse, reaction, and desire to control. You are driven by understanding, observation, and alignment. Anger becomes unnecessary. Provocation becomes irrelevant. Confusion becomes impossible. The currents of desire, projection, and defense become guides rather than obstacles, signals rather than threats. And in this state, you become unshakable, impervious, sovereign. Attention, empathy, and detachment. The triad of mastery now form the foundation of your presence. Attention allows you to see the signals others miss. Empathy allows you to understand them without judgment. Detachment allows you to remain unaffected by provocation, projection, or shadow. These three qualities together create a state of emotional invincibility. No anger can unsettle you. No misunderstanding can confuse you. No misperception can disturb you. You are anchored in the currents of mind, flowing with clarity, perception, and calm authority. Every glance, every word, every gesture is now a coordinate on the map. You navigate it with precision, reading desire, resistance, and defense as fluently as a sailor reads the stars. A hesitation is not frustration, but insight. A withdrawal is not rejection, but information. A pause is not silence, but guidance. And in this mastery, your reactions are no longer chains. They are instruments, tools of clarity, observation, and intentional presence. The hidden map is not a weapon. It is a lens. It is the ability to see beneath the surface without distortion. It is the capacity to remain unmoved by chaos, unshaken by projection, and unprovoked by desire. It is the state in which anger, frustration, and confusion cease to exist, not because the world has changed, but because your perception has. You see fully, understand completely, and respond without interference. This is the power that most men never access, the calm that most seek but never find, the freedom that most dream of but never achieve. And now, the map reveals its final truth. Mastery begins within. Shadow work, self-reflection, honesty with your own motives and fears. These are the foundation. You cannot navigate another mind without first mastering your own. You cannot decode signals without confronting your own impulses. You cannot remain unshaken without understanding your own shadows. Freud, Jung, Nietzsche, Machiavelli, Huxley, they all recognize this principle. Insight, clarity, and freedom arise from self-mastery, and from self-mastery alone flows the ability to engage with others without anger, without confusion, and without frustration. In practice, this means observing without reaction, listening without judgment, and responding with clarity. It means perceiving desire, projection, and defense as signals rather than threats. It means cultivating attention, empathy, and detachment until they become instinct. It means embracing shadow, sublimation, and subtlety as tools of insight. And it means standing in the calm eye of the storm, unmoved, unwavering, unshakable, even as chaos rages all around. The female mind, like all minds, is layered, complex, and instinct-driven. It is not a puzzle to solve, but a landscape to navigate. Each glance, each gesture, each subtle shift is a coordinate on the hidden map. Most men walk blindly, reacting with frustration, anger, or desire to control. You walk with perception, patience, and presence. You read the signals before they manifest. You understand the defenses before they act. You observe the shadows before they interfere. And in this mastery, you are free. Free from anger, free from frustration, free from confusion, free from projection, manipulation, and misinterpretation. You are anchored, sovereign, and present. The hidden map has unfolded before you, not as a weapon, but as a lens, a compass, a guide. You move through the currents of mind with precision, understanding, and grace. And in this movement, you become the calm in the storm, the observer of chaos, the navigator of desire, the master of perception. And now you arrive at the summit of this hidden terrain, the apex of perception, the moment where mastery crystallizes into presence. Here is where all the lessons, all the observations, all the patience, and all the shadow work converge. Here is where you stand not above others, not superior, not detached in arrogance, but sovereign, anchored, and unshakable. You have walked through the currents of mind, through the layers of projection, desire, defense, and shadow. You have seen the impulses that drive behavior, the subtleties that escape most men, and the signals hidden beneath words, gestures, and silences. And now you understand the final, unassailable truth. Nothing outside of you can control your peace. No glance, no word, no withdrawal, no misperception, no anger, no projection can touch you, not because the world has changed, but because your perception has. The storm rages, the currents pull, chaos threatens, but you are anchored in the depth of your own understanding. You are the calm eye at the center of a hurricane. You are the lighthouse in the fog. You are the master of a map most will never even glimpse. Anger loses all meaning. Frustration dissipates like smoke. Confusion dissolves into clarity. Where once you reacted, now you observe. Where once you struggled, now you navigate. Where once you feared the unknown impulses of others, now you perceive with insight, respond with precision, and move with unshakable calm. This is not weakness. This is not passivity. This is mastery, the mastery of mind, the mastery of perception, the mastery of self. The hidden map is no longer hidden. It is alive within you. It whispers in the silence between words. It guides your gaze before your eyes see. It informs your touch before your hand moves. It is a lens through which the world is no longer chaotic, no longer threatening, no longer incomprehensible. It is a compass that points not to manipulation, but to understanding. It is a beacon that illuminates not control, but sovereignty. And in this illumination, freedom becomes absolute. You have become impervious, not through force, not through anger, not through domination, but through comprehension. You understand the currents that move every human mind, the tides of desire, defense, and projection. You recognize the shadows that shape every action, the subtleties that most mistake for intention, the invisible lines that guide every gesture. And because you understand nothing can unsettle you, you are calm where others are frantic, clear where others are confused, sovereign where others are reactive. And so, this is the final teaching of the hidden map. The true power of understanding another mind lies not in control, not in conquest, but in freedom. The freedom to observe without anger, the freedom to perceive without distortion, the freedom to respond with clarity, precision, and sovereignty. This is the liberation that comes from mastery. This is the clarity that comes from perception. This is the calm that comes from knowing the currents before they move. Look around you now. The world continues to churn. Minds continue to project, resist, and desire. Chaos continues to whisper in the ears of the unprepared. But you are no longer unprepared. You are anchored. You are sovereign. You are the calm in the storm. You are the observer in the theater of mind. You are the navigator of the currents that others do not even see. And in this state, you are free completely, unshakably, eternally free. Walk now through the world with this freedom. Speak not with anger, act not with reaction, respond not with frustration. Move instead with perception, with clarity, with calm authority. Every glance, every gesture, every silence is now a signal you read without distortion. Every shadow, every projection, every impulse becomes a guide rather than a threat. And in this mastery, You are untouchable not by force, not by deception, not by chaos, but by the very clarity of your perception. This is the ultimate mastery. This is the hidden map realized. This is the state where anger has no foothold, where frustration cannot grow, where confusion cannot survive. You have walked the labyrinth of mind, navigated the shadows, decoded the currents, and emerged sovereign. You have become the calm eye in the storm, the silent observer in the chaos, the master of perception in a world that mistakes noise for truth. And in this mastery, you are limitless forever.